Welcome to the King Elytra channel, and today we're looking at consequences of the Spanish Civil War. The Spanish Civil War was a brutal war, which polarized Spain, pitting the left against the right, anti-clericals against the church, fascism against communism, and the republicans against the monarchy. Over 3 brutal years from 1936 until 1939, 300,000 people were executed or murdered. On one side you had the nationalists or fascists, led by General Franco, and on the other side you had the Republicans or Communists, led by the Popular Front. This video will look at the significant consequences of change in warfare where Hitler perfected the art of blitzkrieg. Secondly, this video will look at how the Spanish Civil War was an international war, as people went to fight for their beliefs and ideals. And thirdly, we will cover the oppression of culture under the reign of Franco. A consequence of the Spanish Civil War was that it was a battleground for new ideas, weapons, and tactics. In this war, we see for the first time the purposeful targeting of civilians to instill fear and terror that even they are not exempt from war. This was seen on the 26th of April, 1937, when Hitler's Condor Legion carpet-bombed Guernica. This is significant as it is part of how the Second World War would play out and is the basis for what we now use in warfare today. This technique Hitler experimented with in Spain and used in full force during the Second World War. The mentality of war had also changed, and during the Spanish Civil War we see this transition occur. We see this where instead of fighting for their king and nation state, people were fighting for their ideals and beliefs, in which in this case was fascism and communism. Interestingly, the first airdrop occurred during the Spanish Civil War in 1936, when Hitler assisted Franco by helping him to move 14,000 men from Morocco to Spain. George Orwell said, "The old class divisions are breaking down. Modern warfare is industrial warfare." This quote tells us that consequences in the change in warfare during the Spanish Civil War are still significant and relevant today. Another consequence of the Spanish Civil War was the involvement of combatants from outside of Spain. This can be seen in 1936 with the signing of the Non-Intervention Pact between Portugal, Great Britain, France, Italy, and Germany. They signed it because they didn't want another war, as they were still recovering from the last war and did not want to be seen supporting Republican ties. Italy and Germany broke the pact as they wanted to support Franco and test out their armies. Interestingly, Anthony Eden, the British Foreign Secretary at the time, remarked, "It would have been better to call it the Intervention Committee, as its members were constantly explaining or concealing the activities of their countries in Spain." International brigades were formed in 1936 and were made up of people from all over the world, including Great Britain, France, and Russia. During the war, 3,500 men and women volunteered and fought on the side of the Republicans. Most of them were communist, as Dave Roos tells us that around 70% were communists, as communism was the loudest and biggest organization battling fascism at that time. However, this does not mean that they were all communist. Some may have supported the communist mentality, others may have only just been anti-fascist, but they all joined together against their common foe. Interestingly, Hitler and Italy sent their support to Franco, with Hitler sending 15,000 men to assist and gain experience, and Mussolini's Italy sending 80,000 troops to help Franco, fresh off the back of his conquest of Abyssinia in 1935. Abyssinia is now modern-day Ethiopia. Some famous participants who fought on the side of the Republicans included Federico Lorca, Arthur Koestler, Ernest Hemingway, and George Orwell. This shows us that people who went to fight fought on the side of their beliefs and their ideals. This is significant today as we see the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Gaza conflict, which are wars fought off the beliefs and ideals of the heads of that country. the belief and ideals of the mental war had international consequences during the Second World War and still continue internationally today. A long-term consequence of the Spanish Civil War was the legacy of Franco. During his unyielding reign until his death in 1975, he repressed, oppressed, and suppressed political opposition. Franco claimed that 300,000 people had been executed or murdered, but recent grave studies show that there could have been an extra 200,000 deaths carried out. During the Spanish Civil War and afterwards, Franco set up concentration camps, and in 1947 he made a referendum which passed all power to him, appointing himself as ruler and dictator of Spain until his death in 1975. Although it has almost been 50 years after Franco died in Spain, Spain have only started coming to terms with the atrocities that were committed on both sides within the last 20 years. In 2000, the first scientific exhumation of a mass grave was carried out, and in 2003, archaeologists found the largest mass grave in Spain, the Valley of Chamorros, which contained 33,833 victims from both sides. 2019, Franco's body was exhumed from the Valley of the Fallen. Previously, during the war itself, Spanish painter Pablo Picasso painted Guernica, and this huge piece was displayed in New York until Franco's death in 1975, when it was taken back to Spain and is now in the Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid. Spain was ignored by the rest of Europe until the 1950s because of Spain's involvement in the Second World War. Although claiming to be neutral and still recovering from the brutal toll of the Spanish Civil War, Franco sent volunteers to Hitler on the guarantee that they would only fight the Russians and not fight on the front in Europe. Jose Ortega said, "Spain is the problem and Europe is the solution." Franco, on the other hand, said, "I am the only one who can save Spain." This shows us how highly Franco thought of himself, and how he would perceive political opponents trying to take what he believed to be his rightful place on the throne and dictatorship of Spain. The Spanish Civil War is significant today, almost 100 years afterwards, as we see a resurgence in right and far-right ideologies in countries such as Germany and the Netherlands. We must stop it from going any further. As we know from history with previous mistakes, what will happen if we make the same mistake again? We must stop it before it is too late, as we know the chilling reality of war and greed. What is starting to happen, and in some cases already happening in America, is very similar to the case of Spain in the 1930s. America has a shrinking empire or territories, much like Spain in the 1930s, and because of this we see huge armies with nothing to do in both of these cases. We can see the huge divide between the rich and poor in America, and the disrupt, unrest and instability of the American political system. We can also see that America, in particular some places more than others, but in general, America is a very religious country, which was like Spain in the 1930s. All of these similarities that have been mentioned need to be addressed, as the more time they are left to flourish and burn, then the higher the chance that what happened to Spain in the 1930s could, or will happen to America, possibly even in the 2030s. This is why we have to learn from previous mistakes, so we can learn from them and realize the signs before it is too late to do anything about it. Much for listening. Have a good rest of your day, and the King Elytra main channel. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.